Imagine a system where politicians make bold promises, shape the destiny of our nation, and then they walk away with little or no consequence when they right roly things up. Now, that's not some dystopian nightmare. This isn't the Hunger Games to catch some really bad politics. This is everyday politics in most liberal democracies, certainly here in Britain. The problem isn't that these systems don't have elections. The problem is what happens between these elections. Politicians can mislead, they can break promises or preside over catastrophic failures, and yet they really face any direct accountability. Now, think about it. If your workplace was run in this way, where your bosses could lie, they could squander company money or ruin projects without consequence, the company would likely collapse or get a state bailout like the water companies or the banks in '08. Actually, that probably wasn't the greatest example, but you get where I'm going with that, right? But in politics, the cycle just resets every few years. New guys come in and they do the same shit. So how do we fix this? How do we build democracies where accountability is real and not just a word tossed around during campaigns? Well, today I'm going to walk you through 3 ways liberal democracies could improve political accountability, and then show how that could transform into real world outcomes without having to wave any flags. First, we need binding promises. Right now, political manifestos are like glossy OF brochures. They're filled with attractive words but no guarantee the product inside will ever match, a bit like political catfishing. Imagine if campaign pledges were legally tied to measurable metrics. For example, if a party promises to reduce poverty, that has to be translated into a clear target, not some ambiguous statement. Say, I don't know, cutting child poverty by 20% within 4 years. Once in office, an independent body would track their progress, publish regular updates about how they're getting on, and expose their failures in plain numbers. This shifts accountability from rhetoric to results. Politicians wouldn't be able to hide behind vague language. Instead, voters could see a scoreboard of performance, and crucially, if targets weren't met, penalties could follow, from reduced party funding to restrictions on running for re-election or going on speaking tours or getting cushy jobs on radio stations. By introducing binding promises, politics becomes less about what sounds good and more about what actually is good. Secondly, politicians should have skin in the game. As far as I'm concerned, if your balls ain't on the line, you're not in the game. In almost every profession, mistakes carry consequences. Doctors risk losing their license, a CEO can be fired, but politicians? They can preside over disasters, wars that have gone wrong, financial crises, corruption, scandals, and yet they retire comfortably with massive pensions and speaking tours, and again those radio shows that I was talking about earlier. One reform could tie personal, financial or professional stakes to political outcomes. For instance, if a government runs a reckless deficit that destabilises the economy, the ministers responsible could forfeit a portion of their pensions or their own personal wealth. Or, if policy failures cause measurable harm to the people, those ministers could face restrictions from working in government afterwards or taking cushy jobs or having to spend a few weekends in the stocks. This isn't about punishing failure. It's about aligning incentives. If politicians know their own futures are tied to the success of their policies, they're less likely to gamble recklessly with ours. Thirdly, and finally, accountability requires giving citizens real tools beyond just elections. Right now, as voters, we only get a chance to weigh in every couple of years or so. It's a bit like having one of those arguments where someone says something and you have no response to it, and then 2 weeks later you think of the most perfect response to come back with. It's a bit too late. What democracies need is more full-time accountability mechanisms. One idea is citizens-triggered reviews. If a significant portion of the public, say 10% of the electorate, signs a petition, an independent review could be launched into a government policy or a minister's performance. This wouldn't necessarily mean instant removal, but it would force transparency, hearings and evidence laid out in public. Another approach is empowering citizens' assemblies, randomly selected groups of ordinary people who can scrutinise policies and hold inquiries, similar to jury duty but for democracy. These bodies would act as watchdogs between elections, ensuring citizens aren't just spectators but actual participants in accountability. So, let's put this all together. Binding promises mean politicians can't wriggle out of their commitments. Having skin in the game means they personally feel the weight of their decisions, and Having citizens' power beyond elections ensures that the people have more than just a vote. They have a voice every step of the way. Think about a real-world example, the 2008 financial crisis. Politicians promised stability, the regulators claimed oversight, and yet catastrophic failures led to millions losing homes and jobs. And once all the dust had settled, what happened to those responsible? With these reforms, the story could have been completely different. Binding promises could have forced measurable financial safeguards. Skinning the game could have meant leaders personally lost out for their reckless deregulation of the banking sector, and citizen reviews could have exposed warning signs way before the collapse. That's the power of real accountability. Democracies don't just need leaders who answer at the ballot box every couple of years or so, they need leaders who answer every single day. Because without accountability, democracy isn't truly government by the people, it's government over the people, and that's what we can and must change. So that's it, that's a wrap. If you got this far, thank you for watching, I appreciate that. These are just ideas to start a debate, to see what other ideas come up, because I think the genuine issue that we are facing right now is accountability, whether that's in our society or whether that's in our political classes. It's that accountability where people feel they don't have to answer to anybody else. And if you're not sure about that, just look across the water to the States and see how a few people are governing hundreds of millions of Americans. So yeah, we need to have stronger safeguards, stronger mechanisms in place to guarantee accountability for our elected officials. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much and goodbye.